you feeling? You are certainly here. Anna, hi, welcome. Hello. Porch Swing is here. Here you are. It's you. Good morning. Good afternoon, Rose. I couldn't tell who that was. So hi there.
Hi.
Wow, we've got a pretty
Rose,
good assemblage of pals here.
Yeah.
was it just this morning, Rose, that we spoke?
Yes.
The day's all, and Anne, welcome.
Thank you.
We're always talking about how it just feels like a community, as you've seen perhaps on the website. We're just embracing that. And it is such a delight that all of the people that show up right here, we all know. And Rose, you are new to us. And we realized that it was in fact in these kinds of meetings at that first RootsTech that we really started to understand what this was all about and feel that sense for community. It's such a delight to be back to doing these kinds of sessions, and you're going to see a whole lot more of them. Sorry to just jump in there, Cameron.
That's okay.
I always go off script. That's just the guarantee.
I never try to manage.
Because there are the unmanageable in presence.
Yeah, I mean, really, why bother? Well, gosh, I hope everybody's doing great. How are y'all finding the conference so far? Or have you even been going to any of the sessions?
I have. I found some pretty interesting things. My heritage, the woman with ancestry and her stories, and there was something. She was with a couple other women earlier. Search party, something they're starting, I guess, or have started.
Called Search Party?
It's.
I saw that.
It's a method of researching, and it was.
They were coming up with the steps, weren't
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. That's not what I'm familiar with. I'm going to have to look into that.
I have multiple notes, but whether I can find them, they're all on different sheets of paper. That's my problem, getting organized.
The irony of Search Party.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
I think the one you're talking
You got
about,
it.
I think Krista Cowan was part of that one as well. It was one of
There were
the
three
talkers.
women. I don't remember their names. I came in a little bit late.
One in pink,
Pardon me?
one lady in pink. Wasn't there?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. The lady from Ancestry, and anyway, I'll find it.
Well,
Oh,
I'm very Rose, where are you calling in from? Because are you and maybe lone Americans?
I'm in Pennsylvania, near Pittsburgh.
Okay, Carrie, where are you from?
I am in Oklahoma, United States.
Okay, good. We're represented by, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Calgary, Aberdeen, Scotland, and way out in the country in Sweden.
Hällefors.
Okay, that's why I didn't go there. That's why I didn't even try to go there. So we'll wait maybe for a second or two as people are probably, exiting other meetings and sessions, and then we'll get kicked off and started here.
And actually, I'm fixing a little mistake on our website that Kathy picked up on just about an hour ago, where I had the wrong time on the banner. It's the right time in the link, but I did manage the wrong time in the banner. So it says 4 o'clock, my silly nobody. Anyway.
All these sessions and time zones.
I know. I thought I finally knocked it, but no, I didn't.
In your defense, Barb, I cheerfully shared it before I noticed that. And I started to look and I thought I had to be there at 3 o'clock Mountain, but it says 4 o'clock Pacific. That's 5 o'clock. I'm all confused. But
And for
it all
each,
out, no problem.
yeah, you're too sweet. For each one of these, I've got the time of the event in like 4 time zones, and then here it is. It's just happening. We just had it. It's going to happen. It's making me a little crazy. So maybe that's the secret. Can't get too fancy. That is
I did
always-
find it.
Oh, thank you.
Searchpartymethod.com.
Oh,
Searchpartymethod.com. Okay. Wow, you really went to work there, Rose. Thank you.
I did.
Appreciate that. All right. Well, listen, I want to spend our time valuably today. We'll pick up any stragglers that come in from either misreading the time or coming a little bit late because they were at other sessions, et cetera. And since we have a very small, intimate group, most of which we've had interactions with before, we're going to dispense with a lot of formality. Carrie, I don't know if we've had you on many of these sessions before.
This is my first one. In fact, Barbara's been working to even get me access to the site. I just joined yesterday, so I just want to listen in on what the rest of you already know.
Okay, well, welcome and thank you for becoming a member. Normally, I'd get started by kind of kicking this off with, housekeeping about how to use the system. Most of you guys, we've done this a lot of times. Carrie, you know how to use Zoom, right? If you want to toss some chats or questions in, but frankly, with this small an audience, just yell. I think that's just as effective a methodology as anything else. And I am also going to dispense, Barb, unless you want me to do so for purposes of recording, with the Ponga commercial, because since we're dealing with kind of family and friends here, I think we can skip that unless you want me to go through it.
no, I think that's fine. I think we just the reference to where to go to learn more.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, I mean, you all know that probably one of the best places to kind of find things out about us, whether you're researching or looking for tips and tricks, or whether you just want to find out what's going on with us, is just go to ponga.com/learn, I believe is the
Ponga.com.
learn more. Sorry,
Just-
learn more.
Just
Ponga.com.
punk.com.
Yeah.
We'll
And
get
then,
you anywhere you want to go.
yeah. And today, we really wanted to start with talking a little bit about kind of community, and we're gonna talk a little bit about that there's something really powerful about the creation of a community and an ecosystem with a very active group of members, subject matter experts, interested parties, and other people that are adding value in the areas of photo preservation, story curation, et cetera, so that they can add value to our efforts and the journey that we're all on to preserve our photos and capture our stories and tell them. And so today we've brought along a kind of a guest speaker. Most of you have met Kathy Stone. I'm going to give a little bit of a commercial about her, because not only do we like and admire her a lot, but she has a lot of things in her background that a lot of people may not know. That not only is she the founder and owner of Calgary Photo Solutions, and she's been for a long, long time helping people preserve their photos and stories, and provides a range of photo organizing services, because she came out of being a certified professional photo organizer, and I think was one of the early members of what's now the photo managers. So she's been doing this for, better on 20 years now, maybe, working with family collections, many of which are spanning centuries and thousands of photos. Some of her anecdotes of her clients are almost mind-numbingly involved about the kind of efforts that she's been involved in doing this. And so, but prior to her career, she also delivered technical training and management training for the federal government of Canada. She was a consultant of Stone Learning Associates, and she's also a certified adult educator. She's presented at lots of conferences and annual events for the photo managers, talking about everything about, as abstruse as recovering water damaged photos, all the way through how you develop digital albums and development of memories and archives and things like that. And, she focused a lot on helping individuals tell their family stories and use photos as a framework for how to do that. She's devoting her time now. Many of you know that she's gone through some interesting personal transitions, and God love this woman, because you probably can't tell, but she's got COVID right now, and she's still standing up to help us out today, which is an amazing thing, since she's got, chemicals running through one arm and stuff that she's going to tell us coming out the other side. And I really appreciate her standing up and working with us to make sure that she's just an incredible trooper. So we really, really, really believe that she's an unbelievably committed person. But through all these things, she's transitioned now to devoting time to only recording her own family and her own history and her own stories. And she's got this concept she's going to talk to you about facilitating inertia into action around photo organizing efforts to create momentum so that you can kind of get to the good part about telling stories. And because of that, we're kind of, relying on Kathy a little bit as it relates to this porch swing around talking about how we're setting up community. And I'd like to ask Barb to maybe talk more about the community page that we're launching, how this resource is going to support you, and a great new program we're introducing with Kathy.
Okay. Thank you, Cameron. And I could not, they certainly could not touch that intro there. Kathy has been very special to us because she joined. She came to us lurking in our first RootsTech and soon joined us as a member, and was kind of a guiding hand for us as we learned our way around the community and to really understand where this goes. And in that process, we really have come to appreciate just how important our community is, not only to us as a business, frankly, but also to our customers and how they can achieve success with their own product, their own use of our product in working with their own community, their own family, as people are adding stories into their pictures. During Save Your Photos Month for the photo managers, Kathy was the one to stand up and say, the photos are great, but save your stories. That's what really matters. Mm-hmm. And that's where we come. All of the fancy tech that we do, facial organization and high resolution and zooms and all that blah, blah, blah. It's really about making the weight of the chore be as light as possible to be as quick as possible. So in Kathy's inimitable words, you can get to the good part. And we like to focus on that. When you get to the good part, what is the good part? The good part is the stories that connect you with your own family, with the people you care about, with the history that made you who you are, and the people you love, who they are. And that's really what it's all about as we get into these stories. So we have a new community page, which you've all probably seen, and you all probably know what our little secret announcement is here, that going forward, beginning next week, Kathy will be our host for a monthly series we call Kathy's Corner. And it's going to be a very casual Zoom meeting set up like this. Those will not be recorded so that those who come can just feel free, feel comfortable, telling the truth, sharing it with a gathering of like-minded people who are going through the journey. And Kathy's journey is one of looking at her own collection and bringing it forward as she starts to organize her own stories and give pointers, professional perspective, pointers and tips to others who are going through the same thing. And this is why we refer to her as your Sherpa over Mount Inertia. So maybe I should stop talking about you and let you say a few words, Kathy, and then I'll tell you about a few other things that we have going on. How about that?
Sure. I don't know if I can now live up to those two introductions there. Wow. I'm really excited to, Cameron and Barbara asked me at one point sort of what I thought I was going to get out of my involvement in this. And I said, I just want to hang out with these people that feel the same way about stories and are working towards the same thing. And I know I learned something every time we did a series of, I know Anna from many webinars, I don't know when last year, 2021, where we were learning our way through Ponga with Barbara and Cameron, but together and talking about all the fascinating stories that people were working on. And that just opened up my eyes to the importance of stories in the family history. And so after some reflection over the last couple of years, I don't know, Anna hasn't seen me with my new hair. I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the beginning of 2022 and have successfully navigated that piece of a journey for now, which I didn't really need COVID, but what the heck, we have no control, so we'll just deal with that. But it made me aware that while I love organizing other people's photos, that perhaps someone should organize my family's photos, and the family views me as the person who should do that. So we're not doing Kathy's Corner as, let me show you what I did and how good this looks. This is like, can we blunder through figuring out what we need to do together and get, as we said, the mount inertia. It's such an overwhelming task when you're looking at all those boxes and of photos and things and papers and trying to figure out where to start or what to do. And that's what I hope we can talk about in Kathy's Corner, is what kind of problems we're facing. The webinar we did last month, I mentioned that to me, if you were going to ever pay for any part of the whole photo organizing process, I would pay someone to do my scanning. And so I took my own advice, since I have been doing tons of scanning for clients, and I've been sending my stuff out to be scanned. And I realized the other day, I went, I've got them, they're all digitized in my storage account, but they're just sitting there with scan dates, and all the boxes of stuff I scanned is now piling up along with everything else. And that was a hint to me that, I think I need to keep on top of that and deal with those things. So I needed to make a more concrete plan. I was like, okay, well, let's just get all this stuff scanned, found some good sales, but it's sort of, now I need to still manage that. And that's the type of thing we're going to talk about in Kathy's Corner, is like, oh, wait a minute, now I've done this part, what should I do next? And I think I mentioned in the webinar, and what Bob and Cameron were alluding to, is getting to the good part, because the stories are the good part. And if we look at the process, there is a step-by-step process that photo managers used and I use with my clients, but it generally involves doing all the organizing first, all the scanning first, and you proceed in steps. But most people, after they start scanning, they go, they lose interest fast. So I was advising, you don't have to do it all at once. You can do little batches. And so I'm working that way. I picked a time frame that I knew what year my grandparents came to Canada. And I thought, let's start with the farm years and get those stories out, because also those are the ones that came to Canada in 1929. Those are the stories that we're losing the people who have the ability to tell them still. And that became a reality to me too, is I was like, yeah, my generation, that we have no, all my aunts and uncles are gone. My mom, that whole generation is all gone. And so I've got to get my cousins and myself to get these stories out of what we remember we were told, because we're past even being able to hear them from the people who tell them. So it's looking at things like that, and what's the most interesting or the easiest way to get things done and get moving in our projects. So that's, I think, the essence of the idea. And you're muted, Barb.
Barb, you need.
Then I should probably fix that. Thank you. Yeah, that's really beautiful, Kathy. And I think that is indeed what has inspired us in recognizing that journey for you, your reasons for it. And frankly, the way you tell that story, when we started the journey of Ponga itself, I remember thinking about how, photography is a really young technology, only a couple of 100 years old. And those who were first touched by photography and were there in those oldest photographs are now long gone. Mm-hmm. Those who, it's our grandparents pretty much who were the ones that had the closest touch to them. And now they're mostly gone. And each of these steps you think about, those are the precious resources. Even the delicate prints are at risk of loss, but their stories are even more ephemeral and so important to protect. And I've always thought about how, as much as we give you fancy tools to identify the people in the pictures, or at least match them, it's the invisible in the pictures, which are stories, which are reasons. It's the why, it's the what happened before, what happened after, that make stories so iconic and precious. It's generally, while great photography, and we were talking about this earlier, and great, photojournalism, is capturing the whole moment of the story visually. Most of us in most of our regular families are mere mortals and have blurry, bird pooped old photos, and it is the gem is in why they were so important, the context of where they were. So thank you so much for that, and we are really thrilled. Are we okay with saying when the first session will be, or should we dance around that a little bit?
It's an hour. If I can sit through an hour today, we should be, but we're going to say we're going to be all better by next Friday. So.
Okay. So Friday the 10th, Friday the 10th. Do you want to say the time? Because I'm not sure I can be trusted.
I can't remember, so I'll let you go ahead and check my calendar.
I think let's all take our browsers to www.ponga.com/Kathy's Corner and see what happens.
I have it at 4:00 Pacific.
You have 4:00 Pacific.
In which time zone?
4 p.m. Pacific, 5
Pacific,
Mountain,
5 p.m. Mountain
7
time.
Eastern, and midnight GMT. That's 1 a.m. on Anna.
Oh no.
You know what? We can maybe alternate. Actually, that's maybe a real idea, is to have rotate these. And you know what, Anna? We can pick on you next.
Okay.
If you're serious,
let me tell a story.
There we go.
So last night, Cameron commented on that I didn't have a photo in the background, so I put one up now. And this was a find in the photo group, because it was a photo that was showing miners that for different reasons don't work in the mines. They work above ground because they're old, like the man to the left, or very young, like the boy to the right, or injured or something. And
Jesus,
I
how old? There's just over your left shoulder. There, it looks like a really young child.
Yeah, and this photo is taken around 1910, and by law, children were under 12 were not allowed to work in the mines any longer.
Under 12.
So women and children had to work above ground. The man to the right, as it happens, because I did recognize him, that is my great-great-grandfather.
Oh,
who was
wow,
born in
that's spectacular.
1852 and died in 1918. So he was quite old when this was taken. So he had sort of done his time down in the pits. So he was up above ground.
Well, thank you for doing that. Anybody who's been on any of our webinars where Anna has been involved in the past knows that she always has a spectacular photograph as behind her. And they always have such rich stories and history about the work that she's been aggregating around her family and what it was like to be in Sweden, turn of the century and before. I mean, really exciting stuff. So,
this, you're reminding me, and our conversations last night, also in the wee hours of the morning in Sweden, that we talked somewhere between 4 and 5 our time, which was 1 and 2 a.m. your time. We are thinking not only as far as Kathy's Corner as a community event, we are looking at all kinds of different things for community events, and we are absolutely open. And now that we have actually 2 of you in the wee hours of the night here from Europe, Anne here from Scotland, and Anna from up in Sweden, we're absolutely absolutely cogitating on different kinds of programs that we can put together that could be more regionalized and at more reasonable hours as well. So that's an invitation to both of you about some of the kinds of things. And let me go through some of the things that we already do and have planned. And I'm very open to other ideas. One, some of you have already seen, I think, our little How I Ponga events. So the first How I Ponga event was kind of invented by Lisa Listen, who wanted to show, she's been on many of our programs and wanted to show a little bit about how she uses Ponga. And it dawned on me that, yeah, actually, that is one of the fun things to do. I use it because I use it this way. Did you know that you could? And so I think having these as super tight, short little events. So we invented the idea of pocket events. So it's everything has to alliterate because, so a Ponga pocket. Then we have Ponga pocket events, and the How I Ponga will be a Ponga pocket event. And I don't not quite figured out the frequency, but I mentioned it to Victoria, Victoria McGregor. Many of you will know from our many collaborations. And so she'll be on at 4:00 this afternoon, which is why I goofed up the time. I know. That's how I goofed it up in social media. And thank you all for the support on fixing that. But I can certainly see doing at least once or twice a week of those. It makes no difference. I mean, my doing it isn't very interesting. What's much more interesting is watching our members do that. So I'll be looking for volunteers to, if share ideas on ways to do that. Were you going to add something, Rose? Or just shift? Okay.
Another thing that we want to accomplish as well through this community architecture, and we haven't, it's probably going to be the next phase of it once we get through some of these activities that Barb is describing, is a way of connecting you all with one another so that we can do special events like the Kathy's Corner, which we haven't decided what the frequency will be yet, depending on Kathy's health and desire and progress and everything else. Might be monthly, might be every other month, something like that. But we also want to come up with ways for you guys to connect, because as we talk to everybody, we're starting to see interesting themes emerge. Like we had a lovely conversation with Anne this morning about this new kind of category she's kind of carving out in the concept of photogenealogy, and the way that she's using photos as a baseline framework for telling histories. And some of those histories, she actually even used some of these language elements, which I thought were interesting, like social history, which Lisa Listen has as something that she talks about frequently. We talked to Anna last night about a similar concept that she calls, that's a very Sweden-oriented kind of cultural item called dressing your ancestors. The concept is that you're dressing them with this social history that surrounds everything that they were doing during the times that the photograph were taken. And I think there's lots of cross-pollination that can go on as it relates to how do we think about the stories that we're telling, and how do we think about the curation of these photographs that I think could be very valuable. So we want to kind of create that connective tissue between all of you guys so that we can mediate activities and moderate some of them, but we also have things going on a generic ad hoc basis that can add value to each of your efforts, whether they're professional in nature or whether they're more individualized and private. So one of the things that I would like to ask you guys about, and I'm going to start with you, Carrie, because you're new, is as we think about providing the kind of services that we want to support the community, as you are now kind of a little bit of a newcomer or newbie, what are the kind of things that you think of that would be a great either menu or roster of services or support capabilities or elements that you would like to see there to take advantage of?
Well, Cameron, I am really new because I'm not even into my account yet. So
Okay.
We're going to connect shortly to get that fixed up.
And that's actually part of why I'm
working
asking
on that. So
yeah.
But I think my piece is related. I am certified through Story Center, and I know you talked with Rob Kershaw yesterday.
Yeah.
He was my original teacher at Story Center.
Right.
And I just completed a really large project at Oklahoma State University with Story Center Consulting. And then I have my own personal genealogy stuff going. And so Rob actually talked about Ponga in a newsletter coming out of from Story Center that came out to all of us. And so that's where I originally picked up on it. And my the thing that would help me the most is probably on your website, but I've been attending RootsTech and I haven't really gone
Sure.
out there and looked around a lot. But I really just need to understand how it works and how I can use it to capture the stories in audio or video associated with the photos. And then I also got a permanent account because I understand it works with Ponga. And so I'm just trying to figure out all the pieces. And so again, those may all be things that you guys have already created.
No. Yeah.
And I just haven't seen yet.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me insert in here another exciting thing from our perspective of the synergies that are all happening together at the beginning of this year now. One of them was this connection with Story Center. Storycenter.org is one of these remarkable nonprofit that I can't believe was literally right here all along. Their headquarters is like a mile for a walking distance from my house. And we made the connection through a personal connection, not even directly to Emily or Rob, but to one of their other producers, Amy. And I've met the whole team and we're bonded now. We're family now. And we are very much looking forward to some wonderful new programs to come over the coming weeks. Excuse the cat. So there's some other very cool things and the remarkable ways in which we've been thinking along the same lines and not known each other. And they have this deep history and frankly academic chops that we don't.
Yeah.
We're mere we're mere technology folks. So we're very excited about the potential for those kinds of pairings. As far as the nuts and bolts of learning how all these pieces work together, this is honestly why I really love doing these family master classes, and why we're so generous about that's fine. Let's just bring it on in. Let's just walk through this, because I know secretly for everybody that I do that with, they spread it too. And so I'm delighted for all of you who have the initiative, who have the focus to take the personal time to go through all of this. It's a delight, and I know it rebounds and is shared to the rest of the community. And of course, as far as how Ponga actually works, the dirty little secret is there's a link on the internet. You can copy it and paste it into any comment in any picture, anywhere, anyhow. How it behaves, how you would do that, how you optimize that. There's some subtleties to that, but that's really easy. And that's what we'll walk through. And there are tools that just happen to be out there for their own reasons that are genius when used together with Ponga, like Google Street View, for example. Who knew? And it's really fun to be able to do that because it presents new and interesting information about what you can carry forward.
And that's what you're describing is what I'm really looking for.
Okay.
At this point.
Yeah, fabulous. And I have a feeling that with your Oklahoma University, State University,
Oklahoma State.
Yeah, that there's going to be some chops there, and we're going to have some opportunities to expand.
I hope so. We sure are having fun with Story Center. We've got a major event on the 23rd, and we are having a lot of fun with it. So,
one of the things that I really am excited about with Story Center and with so many actually, and permanent.org is there as well. Folks that have the hooks into the heritage museums and institutions. We were talking a little bit about this with Anna. Kathy, you and I have certainly talked about this, and Rose, we even have a little bit of these conversations, and certainly with Anne in the local communities, is these museums that are supporting cultural interests, the many native tribes that you have in the American plains and the distinctions and rich cultural heritage that they bring together, and ways to leverage and support that and expand on that. So that's something that is distinct and special in each group. So we want to create ways to have those kinds of communities grow. So it's our community, but it's also helping each of you in growing your own communities and giving and supporting the tools to make that happen. And just to call out here, Kathy's added a comment in here to the chat. Ideas, questions for Kathy's Corner. She's got a Ponga address to send that to. So that's kind of cool. Where you
That's the
feel
most
free
exciting part for me.
if that's all it took.
Oh, email.
So some of the other things
So
that
cool.
you may not be aware of that we now do. One of them is with each annual membership, we also include this free private family masterclass. And what we might mean by that, ideally, is people bringing together multiple family members that they're looking to be part of this project. And let's all just do a call together, even have a tool I can help you find a time that everybody can be there together and walk through the logistical challenges of collaborating. We don't have the fancy software with an admin and uses and seat multiple seat licensing and things like that would make it very complicated. It's Ponga as you know it. But there are ways that between your member account and your guests, you can bring everybody in. And of course, we certainly don't mind if you have multiple members in a family. We'll even show you how, some best practices about thinking about that, how that would work. But that's now with every annual plan. If you already have an annual plan, of course, I'm not going to be picky. Come on in. I'll walk you through all of that because that's what we're trying to do here. Also, we now have a monthly new member welcome party. I call it a party, but it's really just another scheduled Zoom call. But it gives me a chance sometimes even to bring together multiple members at the same time and share what those challenges are together. And I'm always happy to do those at specified times if that works. I have a sort of set schedule for that. And my little, for some of you who have been with us for a while, you won't see these because it's scheduled relative to when someone joined, but I'm doing a lot more active pop-ups inside the software to tell you things that might be helpful and relevant at the time you get there. You just uploaded, let me tell you what to do, refresh, because sometimes you upload to the cloud, you come back and look in the browser, nothing changed. Oh no, something's wrong. I did something wrong. First of all, you never did anything wrong. Second, no, you didn't break the software. I get that a lot. We're doing something wrong, or let me give you a tip that's helpful if you understand how it's working. If you upload to the cloud and you're looking at it in a browser, you might have to hit refresh because the browser is just looking at what's happening in the cloud. So, it's amazing how sometimes those little tips leave people confused. So we want to help people through those new member getting started kind of bits of confusions. I'm also doing a lot more outbound email, or rather Cameron is doing all this outbound email. And
At least my name's at the bottom. That's about it.
I'm a coward. And frankly, all of you who are my insiders now, you're here at this group, you've taken the initiative to do it. I want to hear from you. If you want to tell me it was a typo, yeah, I'll climb under the table. I'm sorry. I do want to hear about the typos. I will make fewer of them as the more I hear about them, but also tips about things that you think would be benefiting people, or what you really negative feedback, you think, stop, it's too much, no more. I want to hear more about, or I really liked that kind of feedback. We really, really listen, and it can really help guide us to a better place. So we always appreciate that. I mean, those I think are the key things I wanted to just bring up. On the email, one of the things that I'm anticipating doing is an email that goes every month to all members, not just new ones relative to something that you've specifically done, but goes to everyone that is picking up some of the kinds of new things that we may be picking up in social media, or new tips that we've published, or other kinds of things, but not sending you everything every month, every minute, because we crank a lot of stuff out quite frequently, and that's just a little too much. So that's a category in particular where I'll really appreciate some insight and feedback. We're just trying to noodle our way through that and figure out what the right flow is. So that's what I have at a high level, and I'd love your thoughts and feedback on that.
I think that's a great distinction to make too, Barb, about the difference between the master sessions that you do and Kathy's Corner. Is Kathy will not be trying to explain to you how Ponga works other than on a very basic level, because Kathy is still learning how to use her Ponga membership. I joined, I think as some of you did, I joined the day I saw them at RootsTech in 2020. I had been Barb and I had been following each other on Instagram with me having no idea, but we had been discussing our mutual love for picking out details, tiny little details in photos to try and help date them, because that was a fascination of mine. And I popped into the booth, and I think Cameron was there, and that was the beginning. And I think I had an account by the end of the day. And so I'm still learning in Ponga, so I can probably help some basics, but that's Barb's job. My job is to tell you about how I'm progressing through and help you with the roadblocks, or the hopefully not avalanches on Mount Inertia, but helping you get going so that you can enjoy Ponga and get all your stuff in there. So
one of the things that's interesting, how many of you guys have iPhones? Yep. All right. No? All right. You guys have Android, you and Kathy and Anna. Okay. So if you have an iPhone, maybe this is true in the Android world. I'm a loyal Appleite, and so I use Apple phones. I don't know how many of you have had this experience. I bet every one of you, if you have anybody in your family that's in their 20s and 30s, is that we can effectively use this device to do what we mostly need it to do, and we can use it powerfully with its smartphone features. But you'll probably notice that Apple almost never sends out information about how to really maximize the use cases. And I'm always coming across, my son telling me, hey, Dad, did you know that you could do this? And all of a sudden now this is part of my repertoire, because he showed me something that was new, that quite frankly was intuitive, logical, but I really never thought I could do it because I never saw it on a list of features from Apple. So I'd never thought it was part of the OS. Ponga is a little bit like the same thing. When you go through a master class with Barb, what's going to happen is you're going to have to learn the product, and you're going to learn how to do the basics of maturing a photograph from its digital ingestion into our system, all the way through the curation process, the organization, and the using it to put in circulation with family and friends and crowdsource, et cetera. But there's all kinds of interesting other ways to do things. And I don't want to call them secret expert kind of capabilities, but there are those kind of little things in there that we don't really publish, we don't really demo, because they're not really required to be effective in the use of the system. But as our users, our members get more effective in doing this, we frequently find out, they say, well, can you do that? And of course, the next thing that happens is we jump on, show you the thing, and you say, oh, geez, I wish what I mean? That's a really cool feature. I wish I would have known that before. And it's not that we're keeping them to ourselves. It's just that sometimes things that are obvious to us may not be obvious to you, and vice versa. So it's really important when you run into problems, or you see things that could be made more efficient, or things that you like that you want to support, or ideas, please get them out there. And Barb and I have been technologists for our entire career. And so, there is this concept that everybody's baby is beautiful, but that's not really, unfortunately, the case. And so we can sometimes get so deep into the process that we are looking at it from, a very, very altruistic perspective of saying, we're trying to put together capabilities to service our clientele. But we're not looking at it always from your perspective, coming the other direction as a user. So if you see something that seems weird or uninformed or something like that, please raise your hand up and say, oh my God, what were you guys thinking when you did that? Or wouldn't it be cool to have this other capability that we're thinking about adding in? Maybe we can accelerate that, or maybe we can think about putting something on a product roadmap.
And I'll also add to that is that our members and their guests run a very broad spectrum of technical interest and technical capabilities. When I do the onboarding sessions of various kinds, it gives me a way to find out just how comfortable our members are with technologies and what kinds of things they need to do. I've had both some incredibly sophisticated questions coming from people who begin very modestly with, I don't really know what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. I never listen to the modesty because I know that's by no means a guide as to the skill sets. And at the end of the day, there's a little bit of what we do, with the facial organization features are highly technical. We try to hide that so you don't waste your time with the brouhaha of it. But sometimes if something seems a little bit funny, it could be a bug of ours that either I don't know about it and I need to, or a bug that is something that's affecting your account only, and 2 clicks at the back end and we fix it. So, if something is not right, you tell us. And the baby, we know what babies look like when they're little. There are, newborns, it can be an issue. We understand.
And frankly,
Not hurt.
there's always this juxtaposition for any of you who have been involved in a technology enterprise that, the stuff that is most simple actually turns out architecturally to be the most complex to do. And I don't know if any of you guys are sci-fi geeks, but Arthur C. Clarke has a famous saying that's always been floating around here in Silicon Valley that, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And that's kind of the way we think about it, right? We want this thing to be just magical, just do its job and do something so incredible for you that we couldn't do before using other technologies or techniques or methods, so that it makes everything easier and more efficient. And so you can get through the drudgery part of doing the work and get to the fun part, the joyful part that Kathy talks about. So
I will also add to that we there's a magical level we can aspire to, and we are still a little company trying to find our way to achieve total magic. But there are also a lot of things that we are able to do this because we're leveraging other components that are right there. For example, the browser. Ponga doesn't run as software on your computer. Ponga runs in your browser. And there are some stupid pet tricks about different browsers work different ways. And we've gone and figured out which ones work which way for you and what you want to look out for. And I've read up articles about that. But short answer is use Safari. Use Chrome, don't use Safari. Firefox is okay. And I can tell you all about why. And there are other things that really leverage magical features in other products, like paste from YouTube, and poof, it embeds. It's just breathtaking when that happens. But I've had customers ask me, how do you paste? So, that's what I mean about a wide range. And this may be a member, but for some of you, this may be a family member who is a guest you're inviting into the picture. So we try to educate gently and work people through what they need to know to get where they need to go. There's an article I wrote based on that kind of feedback about using browsers. I always think of it as stupid pet tricks for browsers, but it's, it sort of walks you through things you probably didn't know. And in writing that one, I actually learned several things myself about, we don't have a search function to find a given picture. It's kind of annoying. I agree. I would love that too. But there's a very sneaky workaround. If you want to find a picture and you know the name, the title, what's in the title of the picture, you make your window really small, go to your full library, make your window really small, go Command F, and it'll give you, 1 of 47 or 1 of 3, and it'll bring that picture, and you can sequence through them into that window in your browser. Who knew? It's a nice and simple little trick, and it works every time. I use it every time. The same thing is true for finding your scrolling long list of relatives in alphabetical order, or how to think about your albums that you create grouping those separate from the list of names that are automatically created for your albums of pictures for all of your named people in your pictures. Those are kind of best practices that really help work it through. A lot of times they may be workarounds to features I wish we had, but frankly, if we went back to go make all the features we wish we had, we're going to make a whole lot of features that nobody cares about and make the product very, very heavy and complicated. So our preference was to get the product out there and listen to what people want and care about. So that's why we think this kind of conversation is so important, which means I should probably back off and let you tell me.
So I have a question for you guys.
Sure.
Do you have other faculty members at universities who are using Ponga as a part of research?
As a part of
Not a
research,
part
not
of
that I can
research,
think of.
No, we've
Well,
had a couple
Bogda.
conversations. So we've had a
Christoph
couple
sort of.
conversations with universities. We've Southwestern University in Texas. We've had extensive conversations with the University of Arkansas, because the University of Arkansas funds out of their Walmart money that they get as an endowment, something called the Pryor Center. And the Pryor Center is trying to essentially create a Ponga, in mostly analog terms, of the history of Arkansas. And they have this phenomenal repository of everything from news clips and small media bites from newspapers and radio shows and people's photographs. As you well know, there's been research done on how many hard copy photographs, how many actual prints get destroyed every year accidentally, whether it's fire, flood, people throwing stuff away because they're downsizing, people doing things like passing something to a family member that don't care about this stuff and they just wind up getting incinerated. Well, the Pryor Center has been collecting this stuff for now the better part of about 20 years, and they're trying to figure out how to catalog it. And so they don't know a lot about it. So we've talked to them about using Ponga as a way of repositorying that, distributing it, giving basically the citizens of Arkansas the opportunity to go in there. And because of our incredible facial identification capabilities, if they go into this library of probably 20 million photos that are now being digitized, and they identify Barbara, then we can pick up Barbara out of any one of those 20 million photographs. And so we're having some conversations about, with some of those kind of organizations. We've had some conversations with alumni organizations. We've had conversations with some museums, especially military museums, to catalog expositions from everything that goes back about as far as the Civil War. And we're trying to figure out what is the sweet spot for us as it relates to working with these heritage foundations. Most of them are under endowment, and we've got all kinds of sticky wickets about how they use the intellectual property of these things, and it's all very long, involved discussions. But we're not doing anything with universities that are working on historical archives as it relates to specificity around a mandate or a charter that they have from a grant or a funding organization. Most of them have been for these other secondary or tertiary activities like alumni organizations or the things that I was describing with the Pryor Center.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Barbara, I think whenever we do my new member family meeting, it may have to be a cross between family and work.
That is completely terrific, actually. Yeah, no, that would be lovely. And we can, meet multiple times too. One of the things that I was going to add to that is there are often, as Cameron was describing, institutions have certain kinds of obligations that they have and access controls as well as the intellectual property interests. Ponga is designed so that you have this notion of the owner of the picture and the privacy of controls of that. But the content that you point to and bring in leverages tremendously off of institutions that are making all of that kind of content public. So there are inherently, organizations like the Digital Public Library of America or the World Catalog, or, Ransom Center, the Rumsey Map Center here in Berkeley, or in Stanford. There are all of these incredible collections that can be brought in as content, as points of reference, with the institutional organization there as a cross-reference. And again, we've talked about permanent in the past, and that kind of model makes a lot of sense with their approach as well. So
there's actually one more that I was thinking of that might be interesting, very much orthogonal, Carrie, to the exact scenario you're talking about. But we have done some work with an organization called Family Pictures USA, which has this concept of telling stories to develop greater awareness. And they're largely funded by public endowments like the Ford Foundation and organizations like that. And they do sessions in different parts of the country. A lot of them are with universities. We did one that they did with USC. We did one with University of Florida. Most of those are around kind of sharing stories as a way for us to develop a greater sense of community and understanding from the perspectives of diversity, from the perspectives of understanding more of what other people are going through. There was one that was done in the city of Philadelphia that I thought was a really interesting premise that has a very high degree of teenage murder. And the idea is if we can get these kids together, supported by community service operations, whether they're a YMCA or a community center, whatever, if we can get these people to understand that telling stories between themselves gives them a deeper sense that it's not just an inanimate face that you're about ready to pull the trigger at, that there's a whole family history of ancestors and stories and all kinds of responsibilities. It's almost like a Capra-esque kind of understanding that you are about ready to take the life of somebody who's connected to a very long line of relationships and relatives and ancestors, under the guise that if they have that level of awareness, they may not pull the trigger.
Yeah, and that's very much along the lines of Story Center and using stories to create social change. Yeah, very similar type of thing. Well, I think one of the things that you guys, it sounds like, may not have realized that you've done is you've created what I suspect, and I'm anxious to get my fingers on it, maybe an incredibly effective data collection tool for qualitative researchers. And so that's something I really want to take a close look at. And Barbara, it's going to require me to ask lots of things about how data is stored and encrypted and all that kind of stuff. But I think that you guys may have a sideline that you don't realize yet that will be fun to explore.
Yeah, we actually have thought about some of those things. We have this thing, Carrie, where we are extremely focused on the privacy and security of our members' stories, images, and everything else. And I often tell this story about, there's a photograph floating around in my family of a guy walking around. He's got a Christmas tie on and a button-down shirt like this, and he's holding a big mug of beer, and he has no pants on, and he has Santa Claus boxer shorts and long socks held up by those old-fashioned garters. Okay, that guy is now the chairman of the Dallas Federal Bank. And so he doesn't want that photograph floating around because it's been in my family and he's a relative and all that other stuff. And so it's important that we maintain a high degree of seclusion among people that you don't identify as having access to your photographs and your stories, et cetera. Having said that, there is one thing here that's very interesting in talking to people in the media business at large. And there's two elements about this that kind of dovetail, Carrie, into what you're talking about. One is we do systematically, Barb and I and the rest of our team members never look at the photographs of our members' accounts, nor do we look at individual statistics about usage. We only care about, are you doing stuff with it? Are you in there? Are you active, and that kind of thing? So we look at those kind of statistics in terms of usability, but that's it. And we only use it to make sure we understand, which of our users might need some help and, who's struggling maybe to use the system, that sort of thing. but we don't collect what you might call algorithmic defined data that you might hear out of other social networks like TikTok or Facebook or Google or any of those guys. We're very much adamant
Because
about that.
we're not advertising.
Now,
We're not,
having,
yeah.
and that's why we don't have an advertising model. That's why we're a membership service, and that's why it costs money to join. You know, we've often thought about asking you guys, would you be willing to give up your privacy to have the service for free? Exactly. That's exactly what we get from everybody. So you, all of you, right at the same time, shook your head no. And that's kind of what we discovered. That was part of Barb's and I original design thinking many years ago when we even conceived of the service. And so we don't believe that trade-off is worthwhile either. However, there's a couple of exceptions that might be interesting. And let me propose these to you. You don't have to answer today because I'm going to come back someday and ask you again about it. And it's nothing we're going to do in the interim. But when I talk to people who write scripts, I have a friend who runs a business called Loglines, which is a way that they distribute storylines to Hollywood producers around scripts that are available. And I ask the guy sometimes, where do you get those log lines? And one of the things that was interesting about it, he said, 98% of these log lines come from real stories that we've uncovered in the news, in media, listening to people, et cetera, and so on. And I know from my own experience, there are unbelievably colorful stories in my family about things that have historical relevance. And we've often thought that I will guarantee that among the five of you sitting here, one of you could produce a story that is, I'm being facetious, but is close to a made-for-TV movie. And, or could be the fodder for a historical novel, or could be important, as Carrie suggested, to a researcher or somebody who's doing demographic work on a geopolitical basis or something. And so we've often thought downstream, would we open up our members the opportunity that they could opt in and say, you know what, I do have some stories that might be relevant. I've got some pictures like the one behind Anna that could be the basis for a very interesting story about what went on in the lives of these miners, you know, back in, 1900. And so we've thought about that kind of stuff, but we don't have the size of community yet to make sense of that. And second, that starts to get on that hairy edge of, we want to be really, really careful. And
yeah, and my concern is more that you have the privacy pieces in place, because to put research data out in Ponga, which is what we would be doing, it has to meet certain guidelines
Right.
that we have to meet as researchers. And so mine is not in the can we share it side of things. It's more, is it stored in a way that it can meet the standard for can it meet the standard for research? And I'm sure hoping that you guys' answer is going to be yes. But this is an offline conversation.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
We can
In fact,
continue later.
if you can stay after for just a couple of minutes,
Yeah, we can
or
chat
we
about
can
that.
have a conversation. I have something just related to getting you back on, getting your count going. So unrelated. So we are actually, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was going to propose another thing that I wanted to ask everybody about, but if we're out of time, we can do it at another time.
So at a high level, let me ask the question, is this the sort of thing that you would find interesting to have as a gathering of Ponga members, which I would expect to be a bit larger on a regular basis, to do like monthly? Is that something you think would be interesting? Yeah. And perhaps even at better times of the day.
A little earlier in the day for
Yeah, a little earlier. We are aware of the fact over here on the West Coast, we are at the far end of the North American time horizon. And we can find ways to do that even as we do things for the West Coast and Pacific Islands.
Yeah, we're clearly behind everybody on this call, in some cases by a number of hours, with exception of Kathy. And so Barb and I are, quite frankly, I was going to say we rise with the chickens. She literally rises with the chickens because she has them right outside of that window. But we're happy to do these things at like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning our time, if it's more equitable.
If it's good for you, we would. For you, we would.
Yeah.
It's actually Saturday here now.
Yeah. In fact, for Anna, we kind of owe it to her. Oh, absolutely. And Anne, you too now. I know you've been there in the webinars.
Yeah,
So-
but that hour makes a big difference. I have to say that.
Yeah,
Because
it
you
does.
know that I used to live in UK, so I've recently made the move back to Sweden, and that hour extra, it makes it hard.
Yeah, no,
So-
I feel your pain.
So you guys, I think most of you guys know this. Our email convention is barbara@ponga.com or cameron@ponga.com. So we would really appreciate it if, within 30 minutes to the next day and a half, while you're kind of thinking about RootsTech things, toss us a note with things that you think, based on this kind of conversation, we would like to use this forum for. Because we can create, a lot of times we bleed into technology, or we bleed into other topics on a generic kind of activity. We would like to be as focused as we can for you guys around the use of this medium. So if there are things that you would like to specifically hear about, then we can kind of lay out an agenda of topics that you have actually asked for either the development of information on, or if there's a topic that you want to explore. And I'm gonna shoot a look real quick at Anne, but you want to hear something that's new and emerging in storytelling. Well, maybe photogenealogy is something that might be a really cool thing for you guys to get exposed to. Or it could be something as pedestrian as, hey, I really want to understand how to more effectively invite large groups of people to my photo albums. So we can get more things out in circulation, and I'm having trouble with the right way to do that, or the right way to word those emails or those documents. And so, we can dedicate the time to whatever you guys want, because honestly, this needs to be your time, not our time.
And
And
we
so-
envision splitting it up and having different kinds of events too.
Mhm.
That's, I think, a key takeaway from not only
I
the
think,
Kathy's
yeah.
corner. Go
I
ahead.
think the good thing with earlier of these porch swings things, but that they were sort of just general meetings at the beginning, and then turned into partly porch swings and partly workshops.
Hmm.
And I think the best thing with it is that because we all have different backgrounds and different professions and different things that interests us, and we're looking at using Ponga for different things. So I went into it to use it with an idea I had. So I knew what I was looking for. And there were a lot of companies on the RootsTech where I joined up with you. And I compared lots of companies and tried to find the one that fit it. It's like finding a genealogy program for your computer. You have to find the one that suits you the best.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then you start working with something, and then you listen to other people who are using it in a different way, and you can pick up ideas. Well, that would work good with what I'm doing. And that piece from there would work good with what I'm doing. So I think it's quite important to have this. It's good to have themes every now and then, but also have this free flow where
Mhm,
people can ask or tell
mhm,
short stories
mhm,
and compare
Mhm.
and exchange how you
Mhm.
use it. And
mhm.
from what I understand, so Kathy and I will be looking at working with similar things. That's the scanning of the family photos and the stories behind them, and in our own different ways, because we come from different backgrounds with different ideas, and but the end goal is probably very similar. But then, like, Victoria is working in a different way and comes from a totally different direction,
Mhm.
and is using it in a different way. So I think that exchange, and I'm looking forward to hearing about Anne's background and project a bit more further on. I can see some interesting things in the background there.
Yeah, she's telegraphing her background a little bit by what's in her office. Well, yeah, Anna, that's great input. And so, the Kathy's Corner thing that started was designed, and this is a great thing because we can riff maybe a little bit off of that idea of her going, now that she's, I'm putting words in her mouth a little bit, but I've done that before. She's now stepping back from doing this work for anybody else, right? And it's one thing when you're doing this professionally, you're getting a check for it and you're consulting to somebody. Now that business is off to the side and she's doing this for herself. This is a very different thing now because now she's doing it with her own photos. There's a sense of ownership. There's a sense of mandate. There's a sense that she now is doing this for her family, her heirs, etc. And so one of the ideas was to follow her through this journey, not only to get the best practices, but also find out where she's gone off the rails a little bit so she can talk about, oh my God, let me tell you what I did this week.
Reality
And
TV.
Here's how to get the train back on the track because I really screwed this up. And here's a better way to do it. And so we can use that maybe, Anna, as a jumping off point also for people to anecdotally talk about the different ways that they're doing things so we can share in a roundtable environment kind of what that means to everybody. Because I think you're right. Everybody's coming at this as from a different direction. And even Carrie, getting started brand new and coming from what sounds like a pretty significant research background is probably going to have a different dimension about the way she thinks about this and the way she pursues it. So I think getting the benefit of everybody's thinking is going to be really great.
And I think it's guardianship more than ownership.
Right.
Because we own the photos we've taken ourselves, but the other ones we are guardians for.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Great
And
concept.
even the ones that we've taken ourselves that we own for now until if they're important enough to pass on to someone else. That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's such a I was about to say I don't mean this, but I actually do mean this. That's such a fantastically Europeanish outlook that you think about yourself along a lineage and that you are just here as the next phase in that lineage and you're designed to protect and preserve and add value and then pass along. We don't really have that concept as much as I'd like in the US. And that's something to figure out maybe how to talk about at some point, because I think that's a real critical element that a lot, especially young people in the United States, they just don't think that way. And the idea that, we all stand on the shoulders of the generation that came before, and we need to pass things on to the people that are coming downstream. I think it's a really critical thing. Most people in this country, are so entitled, I think, we're not even aware that we're only 2 generations away from people that look like the people that are behind your back. We just we don't know it. We don't see it. And I think that's a great concept. I love that guardianship idea.
Because of them, we are where we are now.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. And I think a new generation, a younger generation has actually, your perspective will differ depending on the generation of your own kids or the people around you. I have 25, 30-year-olds in my family now who are growing up to be incredible young women with an incredible perspective about a climate change future and their role today and what that's going to look like and where that's going to take. And I think it's really giving them a very different attitude about the future than we grew up with in days of throwaway clothes and throwaway paper plates and everything else. And I think the potential is absolutely there. I mean, without getting too philosophical about it, finding ways to interest the generations behind us is really, I think, a very important part of what we hear about all the time. And digitizing the content so that it is accessible, not only can access other digital content, but so that it can be accessed by others and long into the future is really an important part of where we go. I'm concerned about time. And in particular, I don't want to wear all of you out because we do have another program, our little Ponga Pocket at 4 o'clock, which is why I got so confused about the time. And in many ways, this is a first little experiment in little pocket ideas that can themselves be short and sweet. They might be integrated into some other kind of event. They can explore different topics. And from our larger picture of community, we have, you know, a number of member contributed posts, both video and articles and things. And we absolutely always welcome those and look forward in the coming year to be doing more to celebrate the work of our members and their specific areas. And so again, that invitation is out to all of you. From our perspective, that's what really gives us reach. And I'll let you close it up, Cameron.
Yeah, so one more thing I'd like to ask before I sign off, and that is that to Anna's point, we do a lot of sharing and a lot of anecdotal discussion, and we like to get as much participation from you guys as we can. Is an hour format good for you guys, or would you like to have kind of a 20-minute coffee break with Ponga in terms of what might work? A single topic, 20 minutes, maybe 30, hard hitting, boom, we're in, we're out. And would that be easier for you to schedule with, or is it better to have these long form discussions?
I think a mixture of the two would be nice, depending on what the subject is. So the variety would help, I think.
Okay.
I
Kathy,
think I like the hour as far as to ask questions and to get more, you know, deeper into something. 20 minutes is nice if it's just, if you have time later to, you know, kind of talk about it, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. Maybe 20 minutes if they're more kind of one way, where we're maybe disseminating
Right,
information,
right.
and then maybe an hour if there's a lot of interaction. Okay, cool. Hey, thank you guys a lot. As always, you are just precious as our most valued members, and we appreciate the input, the advice, the guidance, and we appreciate your membership and your commitment and your support. So thanks again. Hopefully we'll see you at Victoria's event after this, and look forward to talking to you then.
And Kathy's next week.
And
Thank you so
Kathy's
much,
next week
everyone.
on the 10th, right, at 4 p.m. at the 10th. All right, so long, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.